Hey everyone, this is Chris here with Daily Motor, and today we've got the infotainment tour and demo on the 10.2-inch Infotainment 3 touchscreen on the 2023 Chevrolet Blazer. Before we get started with all the tech in this car, let's hop out and take a walk around it. Chevrolet's mid-sized SUV, the Blazer. It's been around now for a few years and we're getting pretty used to it, though this is the first one that we have featured here on Daily Motor. Kind of Chevy's idea of what a Camaro SUV would be like if that existed, but the closest we have here is the Blazer. And if you want to learn more about this car, how it is to drive, how economical it is on the highway, check the link in the description to get to all of the other videos we filmed on this Blazer this week here at Daily Motor HQ. But today we're going to go ahead and take a look at this 10.2-inch touchscreen. We'll take a brief look at the cluster, and then at the end I will let you know my opinion on this infotainment system and if you should buy a Chevy Blazer. But anyways, before we get into the touchscreen, let's take a look here at this cluster. Now this is a pretty simple display. There aren't too many different options. We've got two physical gauges on the left and the right hand side for our speedo, as well as our fuel gauge and temp gauge. In the middle here, we can use this little roll dial here on the right hand side to go through our different menus and choices for what we want to see in the middle of our screen. We've got a couple of trip computers. We've got our fuel range, oil life, tire pressures, and our air filter life. Kind of a silly one, but as you can see, 100% life on our air filter. And also a timer if you'd like to have that. You can also do activate different functions of things by pressing on the right hand side. So as you can see, you could start and finish the timer with that, and so on. And one touch here on the left arrow brings up another menu here. As you can see, we're in info. You can go down to audio if you'd like to see that. You can go down to navigation to see step-by-step instructions. You can see some phone options here, see which phone you have connected. And then finally, we have an options tab here. Most importantly, you can switch between sport and touring gauge display theme. As you can see, here is sport. And here's touring, which is what I've been driving in. I think I prefer touring to sport. But anyways, let's go back up to info, have our trip computer there. And that's just about it. You've seen pretty much everything you can do here with this cluster screen. So let's go ahead and move on to this 10.2-inch Infotainment 3 touchscreen display here that we're seeing in pretty much every GM product nowadays. This actual screen itself, I think, fits really nicely into the dashboard design overall of the Blazer. It's really easy to reach and touch, and you also have a fair amount of physical controls as well to complement your touchscreen. We have a home button down here, which will take you back and forth between your actual home screen and your first page of apps. You've got a volume knob, you've got two track selector buttons, you've got a back button here, which pretty much acts the same as the home button in this scenario. Auto stop start on and off, and your hazards are up here as well. Traction off, and then you have a button up here for your glove box. So those are all the buttons that surround the infotainment. The only ones that really complement it are the ones here in front. But otherwise, everything else lives in the infotainment. Of course, besides the climate control, we do have a physical panel for that down here below. But otherwise, the touchscreen is used to control a good amount of things. So let's talk things that permanently live here on the screen. You've got a home button down here in the bottom left. If you don't want to use your physical button, you're able to use the screen. You've got a media button here, which will take you to whatever song you're listening to. You've got a phone button, which will take you, in my case, to Apple CarPlay, because that's what I have my phone paired as. You've got a quick access for your navigation. You can see it takes you to the map. And then you also have a button here for your climate control. I know I just mentioned a couple seconds ago that your climate control panel is down here in a physical format, but if for some reason you want to control things from the infotainment, you are able to do that up here as well. This is always kind of silly to me to see integrations like this, but I think it's because there are probably some cars that use this exact infotainment system that don't have physical climate control panels, so they have to also give you this option to use this panel, or this screen rather, to control things. Also reading here in the bottom right hand corner, we have our outside temperature as well as our time of day. On our home screen, it's a pretty chill display. If I was listening to some music right now, it would pop up here on the upper left. On the bottom left, you can see Topher's iPhone. That's my phone paired. And on the right, we have our navigation screen. One swipe to the left gives us our first page of apps. We have 3 pages of apps total. A lot of those are things that you can either, take or leave, like Weather Channel, Wall Street Journal, Spotify, Alexa, and so on. But our first page of apps here will take us to our most basic functions. We have our audio screen. Actually, we'll stay on this for a second and take a look through. Right now I'm on Apple CarPlay, but this is just acting as if I had my phone Bluetooth right now. You can see what song I'm listening to. But if you'd like, you can switch over to Sirius XM and use your buttons here if you want to go through the different channels. Or you can use the ones here on the screen if you'd rather do that. A press on that channel button will allow you to scroll through quickly if you want to take a fast look through, so that's pretty nice. Otherwise, also in this menu, what I like about GMs is when you're in the radio function, you can adjust your sound settings here, equalizer, fade, and balance. You've also got a browse screen here for Sirius XM. It's like a For You function. Very with the times there, GM. And here's some settings for Sirius. We can switch also to AM, but I'd rather demonstrate FM because that's what more people use. Same sort of thing here. You can switch through with the buttons, or you can click tune and enter in your own station if you'd like, and it'll take you to that station. Of course, you can also adjust your sound from here as well, and you can browse and scroll on this screen too. So a lot of different functionalities here for radio. I think it really makes everything pretty easy and straightforward. Nothing too confusing here in this menu. And also, if you want to just go straight to Apple CarPlay or back to your Apple CarPlay song, you can do that in here as well. Cool. Okay, let's go back home with one touch on our home screen. Click Phone, which in this case will take us to Apple CarPlay. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And I'll also show you guys Android Auto to go along with our phone projection too. Here's our navigation screen. This is currently in day mode, but... Oh, and it stays in day mode if you turn your lights on. Sometimes if you turn the lights on in the car, it'll switch you to night mode, but this is day mode here on our navigation screen. Pretty attractive look and a very easy access search up here to get you where you want to go.
What would you like?
Find place of interest. Starbucks.
One moment, please. If you are looking for a place near your current location, please tell me the name. Otherwise, say, change location.
Starbucks.
Okay, searching for Starbucks nearby. I'm finding more than one now.
Nice.
Because if
Okay,
it
not too
takes you a
bad.
while to choose, please do so manually from the display.
Yeah, usually these work pretty well in the GM cars. You can see it gives us like 20 different options there. But I mean, a pretty straightforward display, and if you want to manually type something in, you have this search bar up here at the top, and you're able to do that. You can see it's actually suggesting Starbucks here. And you can do it manually as well if that's what you prefer, but with this voice command button on the steering wheel, you're able to ask our lovely assistant here to navigate for you. Otherwise, you've got zoom in and out buttons here. And we've got settings as well. However you want to see your map, we can see 2D if you prefer it in 2D, which I actually do. We've got some other settings in here. I'll let you guys take a look at. But pretty easy, straightforward navigation system here in the Blazer. Wi-Fi hotspot, which I don't believe... Oh, we do actually have a hotspot here in this car. This will just give you the information here if you want to connect your phone. Users here, and we don't have any sort of profile because this is not our car. Settings menu brings all of your settings into one place, of course, as settings menus do. Anything and everything you want to change will live in this menu. So you can toggle on and off your touch noise there. You've got app settings. If you would, for some reason, want to turn off Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you're able to do that. Navigation settings exist in here too. Of course, they also exist in your navigation menu, but like I said, all of your settings will exist here in this spot. Teen driver mode, valet mode, all of that stuff. You can turn on and off your collision detection and driver assist systems in there. Different lighting settings for exit lighting. All pretty straightforward stuff, guys. I'm always a pretty big fan of these GM infotainment systems. We've got another way to get to our climate here. You've got OnStar services here if you'd like to ask for turn-by-turn directions, or if you just want to speak to somebody, you can go into your OnStar menu and do that in there. Different apps here if you were to own the car and you wanted to download some apps onto the car, which we already have a few on here. We've already got Alexa, Spotify, Weather Channel, and Wall Street Journal. Oh, and the car just switched over into night mode. The headlights just kicked on, so you'll see a slightly dimmer screen here. And actually, let's go back into nav. You can see our night view there. Cool. Okay, let's just check out the cameras real quick before we go into phone projection, which are pretty dang impressive. These are some of the highest definition cameras I've seen on any new car. We've got a 360 cam as well as a forward and reverse camera. They all look very, very nice. You can see our 360 camera here does a pretty good job as well of showing you if you're in between the lines. And I always love a good car with a high-def 360 camera. It is always very, very nice to have. Back button here will take you out, and there's not really too much else to look at except non-infotainment specific apps. So let's go ahead and take a dive into Apple CarPlay. You can see here we have a wide view, 5 apps across, 2 apps down. Refresh rate is pretty good, not the best I've ever seen for CarPlay, but it gets the job done, and everything looks pretty attractive in here. Let's go into Waze. Google Maps. Cool. Okay, and we'll take a look at Spotify as well. You can see now playing. Cool. Okay, and back out here to our main screen. I mean, overall, I think a big part of Apple CarPlay is actually integrating it into the entire screen and making things make sense. And GM has always been one of the best with this. The only thing that's a little bit different here for the GM Apple CarPlay is that you don't have an actual Chevrolet app that will get you back to home. Instead, you just press the home button like I just did there, and that'll take you back to your GM screen. So let's go ahead and deactivate the iPhone and activate Android Auto and take a look at what that looks like here on the 10.2-inch Infotainment 3 display. In general, Android Auto usually runs a little bit slower than Apple CarPlay, is what I've noticed. And now that we've done infotainment videos on what seems like 50 cars at this point, I've got a pretty good idea for, how things should run. And actually, happy to report that the resolution here on Android Auto is pretty dang good, probably the best that I've seen. Refresh rate, pretty good, pretty similar and on point with Apple CarPlay. What's interesting to me is that we do actually have a exit button here on our Android Auto, and we don't have that on CarPlay. So you've got a little Chevy button there that allows you to exit back. Otherwise, though, everything on here fits the screen well. We do, of course, have full screen, and that looks quite nice. Looks like things are a little bit delayed. Otherwise, looks like Charlie's been listening to some Jason Derulo. Okay, then. On brand for a millennial. Otherwise, though, pretty attractive display and one of the best I've seen here for Android Auto. All right, guys, well, that is pretty much going to wrap it up. I'll give you my last impressions here, and really, it's what you've heard the whole time. I really am a pretty big fan of this infotainment system. I've liked it in all of the GM cars that we've had recently, but it may honestly be the best here in this Blazer just because it's in such a good spot. It integrates into the dash so nicely, and the overall attractiveness of this brings the easy user interface, brings all that together and just makes this one really good package. So I would certainly recommend a GM car for the infotainment if that is your biggest requirement, is that a car must have really good, easy to use infotainment. Honestly, the GM systems have really been impressing me lately. Not because they're super over the top and they wow you, but they're usable, they're fast, they're attractive, and they really just make sense. You get the sense that somebody could get in here having never been in a GM vehicle with this infotainment system and immediately know how to use everything. So we like GMs for that, and this Blazer is certainly no exception. So overall, pretty good impressions. I don't really have any complaints here with this system. It's been good to live with this week, and make sure you look forward to other videos here on the Blazer, because the Blazer overall has been a pretty good surprise as well. So that'll wrap it up. Thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been Chris here with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.